All right, we're going to get right into it here. Hello, everybody. My name's Shaine McKeever alongside Briggs and Tommy. We're about to get into some sports for the DVU Overtime podcast. I apologize for the first couple weeks. We've been missing out, but I just want to make it clear it wasn't my fault. We were trying to figure out room situations. We were trying to figure out what was going on here, but we're back. We're going to bring you some sports. We're going to talk about some football, and to get right into it, very exciting game last night that took place in Lambeau. The Philadelphia Eagles taking over the Green Bay Packers 34-27. Impressive game, I thought, from top to bottom. I thought the Eagles played really well. And it really said a lot about the team and their character because their backs were against the wall, let's be honest here.
Yeah.
For a team that should have been 3-0 coming into the night, they were 1-2. And if they dropped to 1-3, with the Cowboys in their division, it would have been tough to see what would happen with that team. But I think they played really well, and I got Briggs here that's going to give you his full fan look on the game. I was emotionally invested myself. I really wanted to see the Eagles win that game, and from a fan, I'm sure it was, I saw a lot of smiles on campus today seeing the Eagles won. So,
yeah, it was definitely an exciting game. It was a game that we needed to win after dropping one that we should have won against Detroit last week. So, really what I was looking for from this game, what I got was that the Eagles ran the ball more effectively this game, which, all right, Carson Wentz, to me, he's a top quarterback in the league, but that all comes from being able to establish a strong running game first. I think we ran the ball well, and that opened up a lot of our passing game, which made our offense look so much more efficient than it's looked in the past 3 weeks, against Washington and against Detroit and Atlanta. Our offense wasn't as efficient as it could be. That's because we just weren't running the ball effectively. We weren't running the ball well. So getting back to the ground game, giving Jordan Howard more carries made me happy. Miles Sanders finally had a good game. So I think that really helped Carson Wentz's success, the offense's success, and we beat a good team in Green Bay. They fought hard.
I think the key of this football game, too, was that when the Eagles got in the red zone, they scored.
Yeah.
And the Green Bay Packers, they resorted to kicking a lot of field goals.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show. You had a receiver on the Green Bay Packers, Devontae Adams, who had 180 yards receiving.
Oh, gosh.
And they lost the football game. I would be curious to look up the stats of how many times a receiver has had that many yards and a quarterback has had that many passing yards alone to one receiver and lost the game. But that just goes to show. The Philadelphia Eagles I feel like the overall story of their defense last night was they bend, but they did not break when it came to the red zone. And they played well. And, obviously we have questions with the secondary. I feel like this is, going on from last year. I feel like they've kind of made improvements in the way they played. We definitely don't have third and fourth string players out there playing corner and safety, but
we're getting there.
But they played well. To go into Green Bay, an incredibly difficult place to go and win, and to pull out a victory like that on national television, it's not easy to do, and they did it last night. And all goes to Carson Wentz. I was saying this today to a friend. When you have Carson Wentz as quarterback, you have a chance to win any football game. It doesn't matter who you're playing.
He's really been keeping us in football games, and I'm so happy to see that. It's just happy to see him back in his A game, back in his element. He's really been playing well. He was kind of going toe-to-toe with Aaron Rodgers, although the passing yards might not reflect that. It was a really good matchup to watch.
And it
really was.
It just goes back to what I was saying, when you only resort to kicking field goals in the end zone. I think at one point, at halftime, it was Eagles had 96 total yards and the Packers had almost 200. But the Eagles were winning. So it's like, so it just goes to show if you can capitalize in the end zone, you can stay in football games, and that's exactly what the Eagles did last night.
Yeah.
Saunders, am I getting his name right? The running back Saunders?
Sanders.
He played a hell of a game. I heard I've been told he's coming onto the scene a lot more in the last couple of weeks, or he was the starter originally week 1, and it's kind of been him and Howard that have taken, just that two-back set.
The thing is, they've been featuring Sanders the first couple of weeks, but he just hasn't really been playing up to his potential. And Howard has been playing well, but hasn't been getting the amount of carries he should be getting as far as he's been outperforming Sanders. So I think the attack from last night was
And I was surprised to hear that because Sanders was a Pro Bowl player when he was in Chicago. He was a good running back. Howard, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He was a good running back when he was in Chicago.
He was.
And I thought when I heard the Eagles acquired him, I thought he'd be clear away the starter. But just the competition, just that dynamic of having two running backs like that alone just says a lot about their depth. And speaking of their depth, they got a big wide receiver back last night in Alshon Jeffrey, who obviously made that known really early in the game with the touchdown. And that penalty by Ertz that they were about to call, I'm not even an Eagles fan. I was about to lose it if they called that penalty because that was.
Yeah, a couple of the pass interference penalties were working my nerves, but it looks like the officials don't want to be very hands-on as far as challenging those calls goes. We saw a couple challenges last night of pass interference. Obviously, the one Ertz got overturned. It wasn't pass interference.
They never had to challenge that, though.
Yeah,
they never was risking timeout because it's a touchdown. It's automatically a review play.
So the ones that did get challenged they all stood as called, which I thought. The one Maddox that they challenged, I thought that was pass interference.
I thought so too, but I'm glad they didn't change it. I'm glad they did not change that because I feel like at the end of the day, the ref should have the. So my overall understanding was that you could challenge a penalty once the flag's thrown. I didn't realize that you could challenge pass interference if there's no penalty called. Which I don't like that idea. I don't like it at all.
No.
If there's no penalty thrown, I feel like there should be nothing to challenge.
Okay.
You know? But it's like I'm glad. So I saw that replay. I think we all did. And sitting at home, I just thought that's a penalty. I mean, when you look at it in slow mo, real time you couldn't tell, but slow mo you're like, okay, yeah, that was a penalty. But I really like the fact that the refs just stuck to what they called because I feel like that would just there's already so many controversies when it comes to football today, and I feel like that would just take it so far out of hand if they just every other play then you'd be seeing challenges and stuff like that. I feel like in every game. So
yeah, exactly. So it's still really like a real gray area as far as the pass interference goes. So yeah, that's one thing I noticed. That's another thing I noticed last night. Also, was that there was a lot of challenged pass interference calls last night.
I think the overall picture was the Eagles. They had their back against their wall. You can make a very fair argument they should be 3-0 going to that game, but they're not. I mean, that's how football happens sometimes. Yeah. And they walked into Lambeau and their backs against the wall and they won. And I think it says a lot about their team. And it says a lot about the character of the team. I mean, they were just like I was thinking about the secondary. Their overall team, they bent, but they didn't break. And now it's exciting football. I mean, they're 2-2, 500. Going into week 5, and we got a lot of season left to play. So Carson Wentz is playing very well. I mean, if he keeps this up, you can never know. I mean, if the team could rattle off another 4 or 5 wins, or in the next 6 weeks go 4-2 or 5-1, he could very well be in the conversation again for MVP because he's that caliber of a quarterback. I think we all know that, and it'll be exciting. Tommy.
I didn't watch the game, so I don't have much to say.
Oh boy.
That was a good game, but I guess we could shift it to because I'd be curious to see. Now the Eagles, I don't know their schedule off the top of my head. They do play the Jets next week.
Yes, we do.
Which Jets coming off a bye, so I don't have to sit here on a Sunday and be miserable. So that's a plus.
That's a plus.
Your team's really bad when they have a bye and you get excited for it.
Oh god. Yeah, right.
Looks like the Eagles have the Jets, Vikings, Cowboys, Bills.
See, that's what I was trying to get to. That game versus the Cowboys. Where's that first game? Is that in?
The first game is...
It's going to be in Dallas, I believe.
Yep, it's in Dallas.
So that's going to be the first test for the Eagles. I mean, when it really comes to... I mean, they obviously kind of got out to a slow start. You can make an argument that it wasn't a slow start. They just, should have won 2 games that they didn't. But they kind of got out to a slow start. But, Dallas, when they play Dallas, I feel like that's what it's going to come down to between this division. It's them and Dallas. I mean, let's be honest. Yeah. The Giants, Daniel Jones is stepping in. He played well. The Redskins, I cannot see the Redskins going anywhere, and that's what it's going to come down to. So that's going to be a big game for Philadelphia, and
it's going to be a good game. Dallas is like really the only team in the division that scares me. Like you said, the Giants and the Redskins are kind of still working on it. The Cowboys have looked good though, but if you look at the Cowboys' schedule, they haven't really had any of their tests yet. They've only played Washington, they've played the Giants, and they played Miami, which I think Delaware Valley could have a game against the Dolphins. I mean, let's be real.
I agree. I'm a Dolphins fan.
We're gonna.
I agree.
But so I really would like to see how the Cowboys react in that game. Really having what I think would be a challenge against the Eagles. So. that's definitely going to be an interesting
I
game.
mean, how can you not? When you have a team like the Dallas Cowboys with the running game that they have, and Dak Prescott, which I know Dan last year would say trash Prescott, he's a good quarterback. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Is he top money?
Oh man,
he's playing better right now than he ever has.
He's a good quarterback. I mean, I don't care what.
He's okay.
If you look at that roster in the beginning of the season, so. Let's just note that Amari Cooper is now a receiver for him. Randall Cobb is now a receiver for him. And he has Jason Witten back, who is, say what you want, he's one of the best tight ends of all time. And this time last year, he did not have any of those.
That's true.
Yeah, so it's like, how much can you put on the guy's shoulders? I mean, is he a top quarterback in football? Absolutely not. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say he's a top 10. He's probably borderline top 15 quarterback, maybe like right around 15.
Yeah.
That's where I'd put him. But in this day and age, if a quarterback can get the job done, they're going to pay him. Yeah. And, I mean, that's how it works. I mean, if you can have a quarterback that can be sufficient and average, and I hate to say it, but average, you'll get money.
Yeah.
And
the thing, and to me, like, I'm an Eagles fan, but I can honestly say the thing about Dak Prescott is he's enough above average to where he can get paid. Like, to me, he's not even average. He's above average because he takes care of the ball. At the end of the day, a quarterback that can take care of the ball, that's not going to flutter out some games and throw 4 interceptions and absolutely kill your team. I think a quarterback like that is to be valued in the NFL today, especially with so much emphasis on the position. So some games he can be lights out and he can have a great game, but he's never really going to have a horrible game where he absolutely takes the team out of the game.
No,
so,
and I mean,
I think that's to be admired about him.
Yeah, totally. And I think if you keep it within the Cowboys have a dynamic about them where if you can keep his throws under 40, 30 throws, he's going to be efficient and they're going to win ball games. I mean, it's just as simple as that. I mean, obviously having Zeke back this year helped him tremendously with the whole holdout. Nobody really thought how that was going to go. And, they're a good football team. So going back to what I said, I just think with the Eagles, it's going to be interesting. I mean, where you are, you got to play against the Jets, which I'd imagine for Philadelphia, that better be a win. I mean, they're at home. Against the Jets.
It's the NFL.
It potentially could be Darnold's first game back from mono, but
he might come back.
They're expecting because the Jets have the bye this weekend, so they're
yeah.
thinking he'll be ready by that Sunday. But
Hopefully so.
But regardless, you're in Philly, you got to win that game. I mean, you got to win that game. And
then the Vikings.
And then the Vikings, which is another good test for them. But if they could rattle off 2 wins and then go into that game against the Cowboys, which I'd imagine the Cowboys are going to have similar records because they've gotten out to a hot start. So it's going to be very interesting.
And the Cowboys will be tested going into that game because they play the Jets the week before the Eagles game, but then they also
week after. They play the Jets after the Eagles.
No, they play right before.
Yeah.
They play the Jets before the Eagles. The
Eagles I thought you were talking about because I'm sorry. The Jets play the Eagles and then the next weekend they play the Cowboys.
My bad.
Yeah. They play the Saints tomorrow night.
Yeah, the Cowboys play the Saints and the Packers before. So the Cowboys are going to be tested too.
That's what I'm saying. It could be very similar similar records going into that game. So it's going to be big for the Eagles. I guess we could shift it onto Tommy's team. I wanted to hear his overall take of what's going on in the AFC East down in Miami.
Down in Miami, nothing good is going on.
But this is what I kind of wanted to ask you guys. So obviously there's been not rumors. It's a solidified fact that players don't want to play there. And they've talked to their agents about being traded. And just from your, obviously, Tommy, you're a football player, and so are you. What is your overall opinion on players not wanting to play for a team that is not looking to win?
My thing, being a Dolphins fan and kind of knowing a little bit more, I was talking to Shaine earlier. I believe there's 38 players on the Dolphins roster that wouldn't be in the NFL right now.
Oh man!
If it wasn't for the Dolphins trying to lose.
That's a big number.
I really get I get where they're coming from, and you don't want to lose every game. You don't want to go out there knowing you're just gonna get blown out and not even be competitive. But for some of them, this really is their only opportunity. So they should at least want to be there and try. I get why they wouldn't want to be there, and I'm sure some of them know this is really their only opportunity right now. So they just have to go out there and ball out, really.
And I was saying to you earlier, I mean, when you're on a team that's that, and I'm going to say this lightly, mediocre, you got to be an exceptional player to stand out. Well, because everybody's going to look, the Miami Dolphins, they're losing. Everybody's going to look to the side when it comes to the Miami Dolphins. But the thing is, when it comes to players asking to be traded, I feel like I get it. Like, it's like you only have so many. The average year that an NFL player spends in the NFL is like astronomically low. It's like the average is like less than a year. So it's like you only have this certain amount of time to gain as much money as you can. And when you're playing for a team that is not so obvious they're not trying to win football games, and you want out of there, I don't blame them. Yeah. It's like it's different. Like if a player on the Jets demanded to be traded, it's different because the Jets are trying to. You can say what you want. The Jets are trying to win football games. Like they just went out, they signed Le'Veon Bell. Like they're trying to win, and they're losing. The Dolphins are. I mean, when you trade your left tackle away, your starting left tackle, and your top wide receiver 2 weeks before week 1, I mean, what does that say to the locker room? It says it's so obvious that we are tanking the season and we are trying to go all out for. I don't know if it's going to be. The dude from Alabama. I'm not even going to try to pronounce.
Tua Tagovailoa.
Tagovailoa, Alabama. Tagovailoa, Alabama. I'm going to call him that. And I don't know if it's him or I know Lawrence can't commit to the draft, but Herbert from Oregon is supposed to be a very good quarterback. It's just obvious that their team isn't trying to win. So I just feel like from a player perspective, you only have so many years to get all the guaranteed money you can. And I don't blame them if they want to be out of there.
Yeah, absolutely. As a player, I can see both sides of what you guys said. Like, from Tommy's perspective, a lot of those, I mean, some of those guys, granted the team is so bad, but some of those guys wouldn't be in the NFL, if they didn't play for the Dolphins. But even more so, like, that's time for you to get yourself on film doing good things and hopefully, get some teams to look at you or maybe buy a way onto a team. But like Shaine said, if you're somebody with talent and you have talent and you could play somewhere else, absolutely. If I see the team doesn't want to win, which obviously the Dolphins front office doesn't, I would want out of there too because I want to win games. And as a competitor, as an athlete, and I'm sure as an NFL athlete on the highest level, as a competitor, that's really all you're worried about is winning games. You want to win games in the NFL, regardless of the situation you're in, you want to win. So I would absolutely understand a player wanting out of Miami in that situation.
And I was talking to Tommy before, I don't know if you saw, but Barstool posted a video last Sunday of the Miami team getting off the bus, and it was just like the caption was, "It's week 3 and they're already all done." Like just the demeanor and just the overall composure of the team was just depressing. I mean, you could tell nobody wanted to be there.
The worst part was though they could have been up 17-10 on the Cowboys. It's like they actually played a competitive first half, and then in the second half it all went down, like really all went downhill. But in the first half they actually played competitive. And part of me thinks that the coaching staff told them to stop, because it just
who knows?
It just stopped. Like there was a dropped touchdown. It could have at least been 10-10. There was a dropped touchdown.
Yeah. Oh, I saw that by Rosen.
Yeah. It was a drop touchdown pass in the back corner of the end zone.
Yeah, that was a beautiful throw by Rosen to about a 30-yard touchdown pass.
Yeah, and they had the ball in the red zone and like fumbled on like the 8-yard line in the first half. Like they actually played competitive, and I don't know. It just all fell apart. Yeah. It's just how the season's going to go.
I mean, I just wonder, like, what do you say as a coach and what do you say as a captain of the team for that organization going into every game?
It must be a sad...
Going against top teams in the league.
It must be something sad to be a part of, like going into that locker room every game. And I'm not saying that like trying to bash the Dolphins, as I'm a Jets fan, so I don't have much to talk about, but. As a you're right. As a captain, what do you go like? You have Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's signed with that team this offseason, who's been on multiple football teams.
Yeah.
He's been on some losing, some winning, but he's overall the culture is the teams he's played on has been competitive. Say what you want about Ryan Fitzpatrick, he plays well enough football to make teams competitive. And it's like, what do you do when you're in that situation where it's like, I've been in this league for a long time. I'm sure even Ryan Fitzpatrick has never seen a team like this, where it's just like we're not even trying to win. And it's just, and I want to ask you specifically, Tommy. You look at their schedule coming up now. They play the Jets twice, but do you see any game that you're like, we could win that? Like, do you think it's out of the realm of possibility this team might go 0-16?
I think the 0-16 is like, to go 0-16 in general. It's tough. It's just tough.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna win one game. I don't know when the game would be. I mean. I know they do play the Bengals.
The Bengals are pretty bad.
That really might be like They might be 0-15. Both teams might be 0-14. I'm sorry. They would be 0-14.
No, the Bengals are going to win a game.
And
they're going to win a game.
The Bengals
I can
are
guarantee it. No, they're not that bad.
Bengals are
Nah,
horrible. I just
I don't
can't
even know
stand
about
Andy
Andy
Dalton as a
Dalton week
quarterback.
one had so
I can't stand
just
him
like
as a
good
just to
week
give
one.
everybody a little background. Andy Dalton had 514 passing yards in Seattle week one. And so week two, for my suicide pool, I picked the Bengals over the 49ers at home. It was their home opener, and they got blown out. But regardless of the fact, they're a competent team. Like, you can't look at the Bengals and compare them to the Dolphins. You cannot.
No,
At times you can.
No, you
But-
cannot. Overall, their talent. They have NFL players on their
They
team.
have NFL talent, but I don't think they're really built to win this year either. I think they're kind of in a big rebuild mode, especially with the new head coach.
Yeah, they're in a weird
So,
situation. But
that game really might be the game for the number 1 overall pick.
Oh man.
Like, that might
Oh,
be
boy.
an actual Super Bowl for
But
the number 1
a
overall
good
pick.
good segue here. I saw on the Dolphins schedule that they play the Indianapolis Colts, which going into the season, I mean, obviously we all were shocked when we heard the news that Andrew Luck was retired. I was very surprised as well. I remember I was at the Mets game, and the first overall feeling that I had when I heard Andrew Luck was retiring is it made me sad. Like, I genuinely felt bad for the guy
Very sad.
because I mean, everybody knows Andrew Luck is just a straight up Class A character, and he's never done anything in football to make anybody dislike him.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was walking away from football was very disappointing. But I want to kind of transition to the fact that, you know,
More
Jacoby
power to him, though.
Brissett has stepped in as a QB1. I mean, obviously he played a bit last year when Andrew Luck was coming back from that injury, but they're 2-0 right now. I mean, they're 2-1 right now, and they're winning football games. And and they played. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank now. Who did the Colts play last week that they had it? 49ers at home, and they had a pretty impressive win over the. I thought it was a good game overall, and I think Brissett played very well. So I think that's a testament to the coaching staff in Indianapolis. You know, they're still winning football games. They looked like a good football team. I mean, they have good players all around, obviously, but I honestly expected them, and I'm bringing this back to the Bengals and the Dolphins. When I heard Andrew Luck was out, I thought they'd be one of those teams at the bottom of the league but they could make the playoffs. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they get a wild card seed, or because I think ultimately the Texans are going to win that division. But you know, they're a competent team.
Yeah, they have a lot of pieces on their team that were pretty overlooked. We're so used to seeing quarterbacks be able to carry teams to success, and Andrew Luck is one of those quarterbacks with that ability. But the Colts really have a solid team around them, and Jacoby Brissett is not a bad quarterback. He's not a bad quarterback that's going to drag them down. If anything, they can still maintain to be a pretty good, decent team, wild card team. I don't think they're going to make a deep run in the playoffs, but they could definitely be a playoff team.
I'm sorry, I said the 49ers. They played the Falcons last week at home, and which the Falcons is a whole nother story, which we can get into if you want. But yeah, I mean, overall, the Falcons are a talented football team, and for them to, you know, kind of. I mean, it was never even really a game. I mean, the Colts just kind of from the get-go kind of cleaned them up, and then at the end maybe they snuck back into it a little bit. But I think the final score was, you know, the Colts kind of took care of business. But now they're going into their home against the Raiders, and they have a chance to get to 3-1. And I saw something posted on Twitter the other day that, you know, Jacoby Brissett, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Tom Brady were all in the same QB room together, and they are combined 6-1 right now in the NFL. And Jimmy Garoppolo is lighting up in San Francisco with a 3-0 start, and it's just a testament to. I'll say this, and it's kind of transition a little quick, but the best thing that has ever happened to the New York Jets was Jimmy Garoppolo getting traded. Because if Jimmy Garoppolo stayed on that roster when Tom Brady retired, Bill Belichick went on for another 15 years winning with him. I'd bet money on it. They would have won the division for the next 15 years because Jimmy Garoppolo is that talented.
If they draft a quarterback within the next 2 years, the same thing is going to happen.
I don't think you could say that. You can say what you want about New England, but like everybody thought, you know, remember Ryan Mallett? He was the backup in New England for a while.
That's true.
That the Houstons gave a big contract to because they thought, oh, he's Tom Brady's backup.
Yeah.
Was not any good.
Okay.
Brian Hoyer was Brady's backup, which
That's
the Browns
true.
ended up giving. Like you would think, yeah, you know, any QB coming out of the system is going to be good. It's not true at all. And I think Jimmy Garoppolo was an exception. I think he's a very, very talented quarterback. And I think Bill Belichick knew, like, I have my guy right here for the future. Like, you know, obviously Brady's now, but this is the future. And when it became that power struggle between, okay, we have to pay him if we want him to stay here, and we obviously have to give him money, and Robert Kraft wasn't having that. I think that's ultimately what came down to it.
And I'm sure they didn't expect Tom Brady to be as good as he is for as long as it's been when they drafted. You got to remember, Garoppolo was drafted about 6 years ago. They thought Tom Brady would have probably been long gone by now, and
Maybe.
he's kept it going.
I mean, just the fact that an offseason transpired where you had Tom Brady that came back against the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl by 25 points down and won it, and then there's conversations of which quarterback they want to go with. I mean, just like the fact of that is just astronomical, and just goes to show that Belichick really believed in Garoppolo, thinking this guy could be. And I just said it earlier, like not a doubt in my mind, if they went on with Garoppolo, another 15 years they would have won the division. Like, it was the best thing for Dolphins fans, or Jets fans, or Bills fans. It is the best thing that could have ever happened that Garoppolo was sent over to San Francisco.
That's fair.
So Garoppolo's playing well over in San Francisco. You know, obviously the Patriots doing what they do up in Foxborough, and Jacoby Brissett playing well in Indianapolis. So life's good for them right now. Life's good for them. But I think to transition to what life's not good for, Antonio Brown. If you guys want to dive into this a little bit, we missed a few weeks, but there is a lot of Antonio Brown controversy going on. And what I thought was funny was Stephen A. Smith said on his, I don't know if it was on First Take the other day, he said that a team that could be likely to sign Antonio Brown would be the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That's funny.
I had the same reaction. The Pittsburgh Steelers could sign Antonio Brown. The Pittsburgh Steelers and the Dallas Cowboys, he said, were the two likely teams that could sign Antonio Brown.
Get him out of here. Dude, get him out of here. He has CTE.
Get him out of here. I agree with Briggs.
There's just not a spot for him in the NFL.
Not anymore.
There's just not. Like, he's very talented, like, arguably best wide receiver in the game right now.
I think he
easily
is.
top 3.
I think he is.
Like, he's easily top
He's
3.
the Kanye West of the NFL.
I'm a big Julio Jones fan.
Absolutely
I'm a
lost
firm
his mind.
believer in Julio's the best wide receiver. But
Well, I mean, you can make that the only counter argument I'd make to that, and obviously we could sit here all day and talk about who's the best wide receiver in the NFL. I think for somebody of that build and that size, I mean, he's only 5'10", 5'11", to be as dominant as he is, you know, like not even 200 pounds, just speaks for itself.
Yeah,
I think he's so crafty in the way he runs routes and stuff like that.
And that's where I give credit to, because there was a couple years where I was like, Julio Jones is better. He's 6'4" and 220 and all this, but like you said, Antonio Brown at his build and with those physical, you know, disadvantages to his competition is still like he's still consistently led the league in receptions, receiving yards, and you know, year after year just put up ridiculous numbers.
I mean, from the eye test, you look at the two of them and you think, okay, Julio is better because he's just bigger, looks stronger, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you watch this guy in football games, and no one can cover him.
Yeah, he's
I mean,
a monster.
you can say what you want about his personality, about his character, about how he's lost his mind. But
CTE.
his routes are just so crazy.
this is what I was telling to Dan. So when the New England Patriots signed Antonio Brown, I said they had the first team all mental illness because you have Josh Gordon and Antonio Brown on the same roster. And I knew this from the get-go. As soon as I knew the Raiders were going to let go of him, I knew he's going to New England. Because Bill Belichick has such a history. Chad Ochocinco, he has such a history of just pulling in these receivers and just – because at the end of the day, when you're Bill Belichick, you're Bill Belichick. If he screws up, he screws up. If he doesn't, he looks like a genius, just like he's been for years. So it's like if anybody's going to take a test, if anybody's going to take a little shot at Antonio Brown and risk it, it's going to be him. And it just goes to show, like, if you can't – and I was saying the same thing about Josh Gordon last year. If you can't make it in New England, then there's very few teams that you're going to make it on. Yeah. And there were reports today that Tom Brady was – or not today, it came out yesterday that Tom Brady was upset with the fact that they let go of Antonio Brown. But it's –
well,
it's
if I was Tom Brady, I would be too. Right? If I was Derek Carr, I'd be upset. Like,
it's just a circus with him.
Listen, it is.
The moment he dyed his mustache blonde, I knew he lost his mind. I said, like, this guy's crazy.
I just can't believe he had $40 million. Like, he couldn't stick in Oakland for 1 year for $30 million. And then this whole thing comes out with the Patriots, and he loses another $10 million.
Oh, man.
Like,
I just go back to and I just laugh because people, you know, coming this past offseason, they almost categorize Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell in the same conversation. They're both distractions. They're not worth the money. They're both trying to hurt the team. And then you see the way the Le'Veon Bell thing transpired with the Jets. How even though the Jets are losing, he's still coming out and saying, like, I have faith in this team. I think we can win ball games. And then just this thing that's transpired with Antonio Brown. And you remember when Antonio Brown got that contract with the Raiders and he was traded to the Raiders, everybody said he won. Everybody's like, oh, he won his dispute. You know, he got all the guaranteed money. He's in a perfect situation. And he had it all in the palm of his hands. And unlike footballs, dropped it. He just let it all slide out from under himself, really. And it's like who do you really have to blame other than him?
There's no one to blame.
You could not convince me. You couldn't convince me that he didn't want to be in Oakland. You could tell. And apparently, there's a lot of things that went down inside the organization that they never let leak publicly. So just to think of all the controversy between him freezing his feet, between him skipping meetings, between cursing out the GM and throwing his helmet and stuff like that over the helmet dispute, there were things that we don't even know about. And it's just like, how badly did this guy want off that team? And it just goes to show that I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a genetic disorder. I don't know if it's CTE, but there's something. The chemical composition in that man's brain right now is not on the same level as anybody else.
That CTE, man, I'm telling you, his brain's getting eaten.
And now he's, after he's let go by the Patriots, he thanks the Patriots and then goes on to rip Robert Kraft, goes on to rip Big Ben on Twitter. I don't know if you guys saw this. He went on like a Kanye West rant on Twitter.
That's what he's turned into. He's like Kanye West of the NFL. It's absolutely ridiculous.
And I've never seen. Well, I mean, we've had wide receivers in the past that have had similar characters.
Not like this, though.
Well, I think the difference now today in 2019 is that the social media platform makes it so much easier for him to look insane. Yeah, I think Terrell Owens, if Terrell Owens had Twitter back in 2007 or 2009, he would look insane.
I don't even think Terrell Owens would be that crazy on Twitter. I just think Antonio Brown is a different breed.
He is. There's no doubt about that.
And the thing with Eric Weddle that's been going on.
That was great.
Hilarious.
That was great.
It's hilarious. But at the end of the day, it's true. Eric Weddle's on a team, and Antonio Brown's not. That's all you have to say.
Just to fill the people in that haven't heard, the Eric Weddle. How did it go down? So somebody tweeted. I think it was a Bleacher Report. Was that the original tweet about Antonio Brown? And then Eric Weddle responded to it, and somebody wrote back, "You couldn't guard."
No. I think Antonio Brown tweeted something. Yeah. He tweeted something that made absolutely no sense.
Yeah,
I forget what it was. Yeah. And then Eric Weddle was like, "Yeah, I forget the details of it. I heard about it last night."
The overall picture was somebody tweeted at Eric Weddle on an Antonio Brown thread. You could not guard Antonio Brown over the top. Like Antonio Brown beat him. Eric Weddle comes back and says, I wouldn't need to. He's not on an NFL roster. And I think that's when Antonio Brown jumped in the conversation. I think
Antonio Brown made a tweet.
Antonio Brown tweeted the pictures of him stiff-arming Eric Weddle. Originally. And said
I didn't know that.
Change, and said some things will never change.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. That's the original.
That's the original tweet?
Are you sure that's the original?
I don't think that is.
That's not. It's something else. I don't think that's it. He said something that
because look, because that was 21 hours ago, he's tweeting at him about this.
Yeah. So it was something. He said something that made no sense.
Overall, it's just this controversy, and I'm sure a lot of it stemmed from the Baltimore-Pittsburgh rivalry and stuff like that. But you can say what you want about Eric Weddle. He's a good NFL player.
He's savage.
He's a good NFL player.
Definitely good NFL
and he holds his own.
Still on a team.
I can't even get over the helmet thing.
I just think he just didn't want to be. You notice how he signed with the Patriots, and he gladly wore that helmet. I think he just didn't want to be on the Raiders. And I think it was very obvious. He did not. At first, I just thought he was a mess, and then as it slowly developed, you realize this guy just doesn't want to be on this team. He never did.
Yeah.
And I remember the original rumors leaking out that he was going to get traded to Buffalo.
Yeah.
And I just think about imagine if he went to Buffalo.
Didn't that actually happen?
Yeah, they agreed on it, and then
it just
Which surprises me because it's what gives him the right to say where I'm going and where I'm not going? I guess maybe if he threatens to not play, but it doesn't even matter because he was traded to the Raiders and he didn't play anyway. So, So, I don't know. I guess cycling around the NFL. Is there any other teams you guys want to? Maybe a little Patty Mahomes.
Still looking good.
Best quarterback ever.
Still looking very good. He's on pace to.
The greatest.
break a lot of records. He is a very, very good player. And they were saying that through his first 3 starts with his QBR and his statistics right now, he's on pace to have one of the best seasons as a quarterback in NFL, over Peyton, over Brady, over Dan Marino, over anyone.
Let's just hope their defense didn't improve that much. Let's just hope their defense still stinks.
It's just crazy because, like, even if they...
That's actually worse, though, because that means he just has to put more points on the board. So that means more stats.
Listen. I don't. The stats is cool. The stats are cool, but as long as they're not winning over my Eagles, that's all.
Do they play? They don't meet.
They
this
don't.
year at all.
No. I'm just speaking way in the future.
But I was saying, Patrick Mahomes can go on to have, a ridiculous year. 12 wins, 13 wins, which they're probably gonna. They probably even have more than that. I could see them having 15 wins, but if it comes down to the Patriots having a home game in Foxborough, I don't see them getting to the Super Bowl.
Nope.
I mean, you have no reason to believe why the Patriots wouldn't take care of that game at home.
Yep. And I think if it's anybody else, they're going to win that game. But if it's the Patriots, they're not.
And you just look at the history, too, with Andy Reid versus Belichick. It's just he's never had success against Belichick.
Never done it. Andy Reid teams, and I say this, and I've been saying this since he left the Eagles, Andy Reid teams are always regular season superstars. And then once they get to the playoffs, something happens, and they don't get the job done in the playoffs. They never do.
Once the playoffs come, you can't hide your flaws.
Teams. Yeah, I've seen excellent teams coached by Andy Reid, but once the playoffs come, his team just cannot get it done.
I think I just feel like Patrick Mahomes is an X factor, though. I just feel like I think he could be one of the best quarterbacks ever. Never mind when you stat. I mean, Andy Reid has coached Alex Smith, McNabb, Vic. It's just like, but we can all agree that Mahomes is a level above all of them, a clear level above all of them, and I just think that could be the X factor. But if they want to win, and I sound kind of, I don't want to say redundant, but it's just like if they want to win, they need to clinch home field. But they had that last year and they lost, so it's like it's going to be interesting how it's going to play out in the AFC because
they just can't see the Patriots.
It's not that the Steelers have ever beat Brady anyway, but it's like now that the Big Ben's out, it really comes down to Patriots and the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, maybe the Chargers can make a case to be a pretty good contender, maybe a little ways down the season. They had a great season last year, but I still want to see them play for another 3 or 4 weeks before I make it determine how good they are.
And the Chargers are kind of the same way too.
And they're in the same division as the Chiefs.
Yeah, I know they are.
The Chargers are kind of the same way though, but they're always great in the regular season, and then once the postseason comes, they just can't finish the job.
It's really a shame what's going on there for the Chargers because I feel like they have a really good football team, but the whole situation with where they're playing is just like awful. A disaster. It's just sad. It's because they're about to move into a new stadium in Los Angeles. They can barely fill the soccer stadium they're playing in right now. So what's going to happen when they move to LA and they have 60,000 seats to fill, even more, probably 80,000 seats to fill? And it's like people aren't going to show up. And they have a good football team, too.
Yeah.
It's going to be I'm very curious to how that's going to work. But it's also sad at the same time, too, because ultimately they never should have left San Diego. I mean, they had the fan base there. They had the fans there. They should have just built that stadium in San Diego. Obviously, there was a lot of politics involved that I don't know the full details about.
Sharing it with the Rams.
Yeah, it's going to be a disaster. And I feel bad for any San Diego Charger fan right now because they have a good football team. And I at the end of the day, I would love to see Philip Rivers win a Super Bowl. I feel like he deserves one championship.
I think that's the thing that's holding him back. I
think
Philip Rivers doesn't have the talent to win a Super Bowl.
Well, you look at that 04 draft class. You got Eli Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, Philip Rivers, and then Matt Schaub, if you want to throw him in there. I think he was in that draft class too. But it's like Philip Rivers, he's going to be a Hall of Famer.
He is. I just don't think he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He's had so many opportunities to win the Super Bowl,
and every single time, it's one factor. He had to go through Tom Brady. No, he had to go through Tom Brady, and they
never plays well enough. But
they played the AFC Championship against New England. He had a torn ACL, and he still played through the game, which I just find.
He played good.
He had a torn ACL going into the game. He didn't even tear it in the game. He knew his ACL was torn. He said, "I'm still playing this football game," which is just like a testament to him. I mean, that's just goes to show he's a competitor. I mean, he deserves it though. A lot of people say he's a little bit of a a jerk, to say it kindly, on the field. Like he'll tell you if you screw up as a receiver, as a running back, as a lineman. But
I just can't stand the way he throws the ball either. He throws it like I can't stand.
I know you listen. As a Jets fan, you could throw the ball behind your back as long as you get completions. I really don't care. As long as he's getting first downs, and he's done them for his whole career, and he's been very successful at it. So we'll see how that plays out. Something I wanted to bring up though, as I take a sip of coffee. Sorry about that. Is I wanted to look around the 0-3 teams in the NFL and see if there's any chance that a team could turn it around this early. I can rattle off a few. You got my earliest candidate is the Broncos. Got the depending on Cam Newton's injury, the Panthers are 0-3.
The Panthers I thought they won last week.
Oh yeah, you're right. They did win under Allen. They're 1-2. They're still at the bottom of the league. And the Jets, Miami. There's got to be another few in there.
Not turning it around. Washington.
Not
turning it around.
Arizona is winless.
Arizona.
Honestly,
is there any?
I feel like Arizona's very close.
I don't think so.
No.
I just don't think they have a talented roster.
I feel like they're very close.
No.
I don't know.
I think I'm playing. Miami could
No.
I mean, there's not too many teams where you could look at and be like, okay. I mean, Pittsburgh, they're not.
Nah.
I think Pittsburgh's gonna turn around.
Without Big Ben, I don't think.
The thing is, they drafted Mason Rudolph to kind of be Big Ben's apprentice and learn under him and stuff like that. And the fact that he has gone into games and he's played well. I mean, I'm not going to say he's played horrible, especially last week. He had a couple of impressive throws, but you want to see something from this kid. And I mean, if they're going to start off 0-6, I mean, that's just just goes to show that kid was the wrong pick because you got to see something from him.
I think a bold prediction. I think it'll take until week 17 to know if the Steelers are going to make the playoffs or not. I'm not saying they're going to make it. I'm not saying they're not going to make it. I think it's going to come down to week 17.
I don't think they're going to make it.
I think it's going to come down to week 17.
I think there's plenty of teams in the AFC that are better than them.
I don't think they're going to.
I think if you look at Texans Indianapolis division alone, I think there's 3 playoff teams in that division.
If they could maybe possibly find another receiver.
You don't think Jacksonville's a playoff team?
No, Jacksonville's not a playoff team.
Jacksonville's not a playoff team.
Listen, Gardner Minshew is not as good as advertised. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
but it's
my
the
man
same.
Nick Foles is coming back, so
you never know, and who knows what could happen. But I'm saying it's the same as the Dak Prescott kind of dynamic. If you can keep them under 25 throws a game, run the ball heavily, and have that defense, they can win football games. There's no doubt about it. They could win football games, and they're 2-1 right now. I mean.
Listen, all they have to do
that division too, the AFC, what is that? The AFC South? Yeah, the AFC South is much of a crapshoot. I mean, you don't know who's coming out of that.
But you have to think about it. To me, the only teams they have to be better than is Buffalo, which I don't think Buffalo's going to keep this going. I mean, that's just me. Buffalo, Indianapolis, and Jacksonville. Honestly, that's the only.
And the
that's
Texans.
the wild card teams that they have to beat out. Texans
Oh, the wild
card.
cards. Oh, okay.
That's the teams they're gonna have to beat out for the wild card spot because I don't think they're gonna win the division. I think that's doable. I think it's gonna take until week 17 to figure out whether they're gonna make the playoffs or not.
And a little bit of a side note: Buffalo is 3-0, and so is New England, and they're playing New England in Buffalo this weekend. So expect some Bills Mafia, really good content to come out. It's going to be unreal.
It's going to be good. The game will be good.
My story is that my starting quarterback in fantasy I wasn't there for the draft. I had practice in my league, so the computer drafted my team. My starting quarterback was Cam Newton, and my backup was Mitch Trubisky. So Cam Newton gets hurt. Mitch Trubisky had played horrible through then. So I dropped Trubisky. I look on the free agent market. I see Josh Allen. So I picked up Josh Allen, and he came in, and he delivered last week. Excellent game.
Well, just what irks.
So now I'm keeping him in, and he's going to deliver against New England.
What irks me about the whole I think Josh Allen's a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a good quarterback. But people think just because he's 3-0, He's better than Sam Darnold, and I think that's ridiculous. I think it's absolutely ridiculous.
I don't think Sam Darnold's good. He wasn't even good in college.
I don't think Sam Darnold. Don't get me wrong. I don't think Sam Darnold. I'm not gonna write him off right now and be like, oh, he's a franchise.
I've already written him off. I wrote him off.
No, I'm not gonna write him off as he's a franchise quarterback. He's the savior. I'm not gonna say any of that. But what I'm saying is, on a talent basis, Sam Darnold is a better quarterback than Josh Allen.
Listen,
on a talent basis, he is more talented.
On a talent basis,
I want to see
or
Sam
a
Darnold do well.
or like a mental basis.
If you see, like,
because
I can
Sam
show
Darnold
you,
is probably
I can
smarter than Josh.
I can show you some throws that Sam Darnold's made last year, and you're like, it's special. Like the way he flicks his wrist, and then it's almost. I hate to bring this up because obviously you can't compare the two at all right now. It's almost Aaron Rodgers, like the way he's flicked a football and has thrown like these ridiculous throws. And that's something growing up watching Geno Smith, Mark Sanchez. We could go all down the line.
Watching great
I've never
quarterbacks.
seen a quarterback just with just the talent like that. Just that's only God gave him that. He wasn't taught that. So it's like, and I think it's ridiculous to write off Josh Allen as a better quarterback than Sam Darnold right now.
I mean,
is he a good quarterback? Yes. I'll say he's a good quarterback. As a talent basis, you have to also realize the Buffalo Bills are more talented. They have a better defense. They have one of the best defenses in football.
They do.
And they have a great coach. I mean, say what you want. Buffalo is a well-coached team.
They are.
And the Jets have
I
neither.
don't
So it's
understand
like
how they're as good
it's
as
the
they
team.
are.
It's the team around him that has a lot to do with it. Sam Darnold, hasn't had an offensive line in his first 18 games in the NFL. So it's like, how good can you really be? But going from Josh Allen to Sam Darnold, I want to talk about Lamar Jackson.
Monster.
And I will openly say I did not think Lamar Jackson was going to play as good as he did to start the season.
Yeah, you said. I remember that last year. You were like, you weren't a believer in Lamar.
I'm still not a believer in Lamar.
Oh gosh,
Because-
it's still.
Let me tell you what.
Still say
I'm a
it.
believer.
Let me
I've
tell you
been a
why.
believer.
And it's this simple. And it has nothing to do with his talent. He's going to get hurt.
He's not, he doesn't even want to run the ball. He came out and
But
said,
he
"I don't want
does.
to run the ball anymore."
But he does. You see the play where he was run into the pylon in the end zone and he puts his hands up and then he just gets clocked.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't get clocked, but I mean, for a running back that size and build, I mean, you can't take hits like that consistently. And I just think it's going to be a matter of time before he runs. And, it might even be a meaningless first down in the end of a football game that they're winning. And he could break a rib, he could break his wrist. You don't know, or he could tear an ACL to go to that extreme.
Okay.
But
we look at this. Look at it like this. Over the summer, I heard a statistic. It wasn't really about this player, but the most hit quarterback in the NFL by far since coming into the league is Cam Newton. Cam Newton is taking like thousands of hits, and even a man at his stature, he's starting to break down from that. But in second place was Russell Wilson. And we've never had to deal with Russell Wilson being injury prone. And he takes a lot of hits. He's second in the NFL for career hits taken. He's second. I feel like it's possible to take a lot of hits as a quarterback and still be strong and still be tough and still be durable. So
I think it's different when you look at Russell Wilson though, because I feel like his stature, he's a stockier guy. I mean, do you agree with me or no? Like Lamar Jackson's a tall, thin, skinny guy. He's a lot like his backup quarterback Robert Griffin III, who started an amazing NFL career, and then we saw what happened to him.
I don't even want to talk about.
What do you
mean? It makes me so depressed. It makes me so depressed.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at their careers, they're so relatable. Robert Griffin III lit up the league when he came in, played unreal. I remember at one point my dad watching RG3 on Thanksgiving Day when he threw 5 touchdowns against the Cowboys in Dallas. I don't know if you remember that game.
Yeah,
I remember my dad said, I would trade everyone on the Jets roster for that quarterback right now. And I agree with him. I'm like, he is unreal. And then, only 4 years later, see where his career is right now. It's like, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you are injury prone, it will ruin your career. And that's what I still think about Lamar Jackson. If I am a Baltimore Ravens fan, every time that guy goes to run the football, I would be, my heart would be in my throat. I'd be so nervous. So
the real question is, does he wear Adidas?
Lamar Jackson?
Yeah.
I know Griffin does.
Exactly. I'm telling you, Adidas is just injury prone.
That
Everyone who wears Adidas gets injured.
That might be true.
I know Louisville has Adidas uniforms.
That's true, yeah. I know.
But everyone who wears Adidas,
I know Zion Williamson
just gets
tore his
injured.
foot through a Nike shoe, so.
But didn't he sign? Who did Zion sign? He signed with
Jordan.
Jordan, right?
yeah.
He signed with Jordan, which is basically signed with Nike. I mean, he didn't care.
All right. I mean, if there's any other topics you guys want to touch upon.
I think we covered the big things. I mean.
All right. So I mean, the Eagles play. They obviously not playing this Sunday, but they got the Jets next Sunday, which we're gonna try to maybe give you a nice good. Maybe we'll give you one more before that game because that's fall break. I don't know what your schedule's like, but we'll figure it out. And
Be here for football.
Yes, sir.
And there's gonna be a lot of great football going on. What's the Sunday night game before we go?
Dallas, New Orleans.
Dallas, New Orleans, the Sunday night game. You know it for a fact?
Yes.
All right. I mean, that should be a good football game. Teddy Bridgewater.
Teddy.
What's his name? Kenny Hill? Who's the other quarterback on New Orleans?
Taysom Hill.
Taysom Hill, yeah.
Teddy, I love Teddy Bridgewater's.
He was on the Jets,
chance.
remember?
I know. He was on the Jets, which is why I didn't understand.
I didn't think the Jets should have traded him.
Yeah.
I think they should have started him and then moved to Darnold. But
yeah.
I mean, they don't listen to me, so they don't read my subtweets. So. All right, so I guess that's gonna wrap it up today. Good time and keeps it within an hour. So everyone have a good weekend. Enjoy some football and
go Aggies.
Go Aggies.
Go Aggies.